Hello YouTube, this is William. Right here, wanted to play around with this little knife I made. I had to make some Woodsman's Classics, and I don't use jigs to do my grinds because I have so many different types of blades, and it's kind of and styles and everything that I do everything by eye, and it's all by hand. So sometimes when I go to a Scandi grind, for some reason Scandis just give me a fit, and so it takes me a blade to kind of get the rhythm again, and so that's what this is. This started as a Woodsman's Classic, but I got a little high on the Scandi, and so I've been wanting to try a very high Scandi grind with just a micro bevel and just see how the edge would hold up. And so I kind of changed this blade up a little bit to do that. It's not as long. This is only a 3.5 inch blade. The Woodsman's Classic is a 4-inch blade. So I thought maybe must be an airboat on the lake. I thought maybe this would make a good little carver, but I wanted to test that and see. And I've got some red oak here that's kind of wet, and just see. I mean, it really bites into the wood like you would think a Scandi would. But the issues that I've had with Scandis is that the edges are so thin that you have to either just use them in soft woods, or you have to put a micro edge on them. But you have such a steep apex that is usually about half. This is 1/8 inch steel, so it's usually about half of this height. So I mean, once you start cutting into it, you're right at the apex almost immediately. But with a saber, you have a little bit more cutting area to let that wood expand, the fibers in that wood, so it doesn't create that much drag or as much drag. But it's still got some drag, more drag than a full flat. But anyway, so I wanted to see how well this would cut, and I mean, it cuts just like butter. It really does, which I expected that. But I wanted to see how well the edge holds up, because like I said, the Scandis that I've all used is, once you get them into hardwoods, they're a little bit lacking, especially when you start trying to do those curve cuts like that, twisting the blade in there and getting in there and popping material out and things like that. You'll get little micro chips into the edge there because it's so thin. That's just part of a Scandi blade. It's just part of it. So I wanted to try this and see excuse me, how this worked. And you just see it's just hogging the wood off. And I don't, to be honest, I don't know if I like that, because I like to have a little bit more control. So with a flat, you can lay the blade down and you can get really, really fine curls, almost paper thin curls. Whereas a Scandi, it wants to bite into the wood too much, and the curls are not as thin. You get curls, but they're thicker than what a full flat will give you. See how thick those are? I mean, they're still curls, but they're not as thin as a flat will. Matter of fact, let me go get a flat and I'll show you. Okay, I got a 1/8 inch full flat knife. It's 01, same steel. So here Mystique. So the same area. I don't know if you can see that or not, but see how fine those curls are? They're just paper thin. That's these curls right here. So that's the difference between a full flat and a Scandi, as when you're cutting or when you're doing curls. Now, some would say that that's all in technique. You have to learn the knife, and that may be part of it. But for me, I can get better curls with a full flat. Now, someone who uses a Scandi 90% of the time may disagree, but I challenge you to try that. One thing that I've heard people say is they don't like flats because they can't do feathers. Well, I guess it depends on what type of feathers you want to do. If you want to do just thick feathers like this, then Scandis do very well, because they want to bite into the wood. You have to have the angle up so high that they actually it tries to sink itself into the wood. Whereas a flat you can lay the blade down and you can actually just shave the wood and get those real fine shavings. See there. Yeah, I hope all this made sense. Now, with that said, as far as a carving knife, wood carving knife, if you're not just trying to do fine shavings, then of course a Scandi is king. They carve because, again, it bites into the wood, and that's what you want for a carving knife. So if you was going to do just pure carving, and that was all you was going to use the knife for, in soft woods, then a Scandi or something similar to this, which is a very high Scandi with a micro bevel on it. And you say, well, what do you mean with a micro bevel? Well, it's a Scandi blade that comes down to a 0 degree grind, okay, on the V grind. Then I take the blade, I lay it on the grind, and I pick it up just very slightly, and just with the weight of the blade. I run it about 4 times on either side with just the weight of the blade, creating a secondary micro bevel. And the only way you can see that is with a microscope. You can't see it with a naked eye, but it's there. And I use ceramic rods. You can use little steel sharpening, those little steel sharpening rods. You can use those. I wouldn't use a diamond unless it was a very fine diamond rod, because, and I mean, it will put a very strong edge onto that blade. And I had many, I say many, I had one viewer who just cannot understand why a micro edge is stronger than just a 0 degree edge. And if you think about it, a 0 edge, and I can't, is like this. But if you bring it out slightly, like this, then the edge has more strength right close to that edge. In other words, the apex, is brought up the blade a little bit towards a little bit thicker right at the edge. So there's a little bit more steel there. So if it's more steel, it means more strength. That's the reason a Scandi or a saber blade is stronger than a full flat, because it has more steel. A full flat has more steel taken off because you're taking steel from the edge to the spine. Whereas here, all the steel is left on at least half of it, maybe 3/4, depending on the grind. Okay? So, now if I was going to take a knife out and I was going to just carve, and getting some fine feathers there, well, it takes a lot of control. A lot of control to get those fine feathers. I guess with practice it could be done, but to me it's not as easy as a full flat. I mean, it's just like night and day for me. Now, for somebody else, it may be different. So, but if you guys have the same thickness of lies, and you have one that's a full flat and one that's a Scandi, just try it and alternate it. See which one works for you. So, but again, I am not a feather stick kind of guy. I mean, like I said before in videos, I can count on probably one hand as many times as I've been in the woods that I've had to do feather sticks in order to get a fire going. Now that's my area. Whereas in you may be up in the Pacific Northwest where you have to do feather sticks every time you want to light a fire because it's so wet. So, I mean, it just depends on your area of the country and what you have to do. So, anyway. But anyway, I'm not knocking the Scandi at all. I mean, I think Scandis have their place. I think that it is a beautiful grind for carving and things like that. That is just that one issue with it. And I thought maybe that I would wear this knife and try this knife for a while and just see if my opinions change. Because hey, you know, we grow, we evolve, we adapt, and maybe I just need to learn the knife. Seemed like I heard that somewhere before. But anyway, it's just a Sunday. I got a handle that's drying, so I can get in there and shape it, get that one order done. And I really like the shape of this blade. It's really a nice shape. It kind of drops the whole blade drops all the way down a little bit. Yeah, slight curve. I don't know, it'd make a good little bushcraft knife, a little necker. Those who like to go out and just wheedle on a stick. It has a very fine point. That was the other thing that I was concerned about, is on those Woodsman's Classic. The points on them are so fine that I was concerned about them breaking, because if the blade was designed along the lines of the Skookum bush tool with that Moore's Kahansky has made famous, and that was one of the issues that he had, was the tips were breaking off. And so far with my heat treat, the tips are fine. I haven't had any break. So I'm hoping that problem is solved. I mean, just sticking it in that hardwood like that and laying the blade over. I don't know if you're seeing that or not, but no, I wouldn't recommend you guys trying that, because it could very well break the tip. But that held up very nice. Yeah, it has some good lines. I can see this as being a good companion knife for if you wanted to take an axe or something. I think it would be very nice as a companion knife. Take the place of a Mora for sure. Have a little bit stronger knife. I mean, I would feel comfortable batoning this knife into anything up to a couple of inches in diameter, as long as it was straight grained and no knots or anything like that. It's 1/8 inch 01 tool steel, so it's a pretty stout knife. It's full tang. So it's a fairly robust small knife. So it certainly has its place, I would say.